When I saw Nobody Wants to Die on my Steam feed, I was hooked. A neo-noir tale set in a cyberpunk dystopia where immortality is achieved? Sign me the fuck up. The game starts with a "please don't compare us to Fallout" style animation that explains how immortality came about in this universe.
Haunted by your own looming mortality? Not anymore. Now there's Icarite.
Icarite. Bit on the nose, but as a quick and dirty exposition, it does a decent job. The camera pulls out, revealing a drive-in theater where our main character, James Kara, is watching a movie with his wife, Rachel. The two begin to flirt, and something about the exchange feels off to me. Take a listen.
Don't you already know who the murderer is?
That's not the point.
And at least tell me what's going on.
Just watch, okay? This is the best part, where he's questioning the suspect.
And when are you gonna question me?
You want me to question you?
Don't you want to?
Should I handcuff you? We always handcuff suspects.
It definitely is supposed to come off as cool, sultry, yeah, something you would see from Laura or Maltese Falcon. But there is an awkwardness to the lines, like the actors weren't in the same room, or like the lines were cut up together from multiple different takes, making these two feel like they just met rather than being married for years. James ends up taking his schizophrenia medication, making his wife disappear. Just like in real life. Turns out James is a cop, and he calls his police chief asking to be reinstated.
Kara, how you feeling?
Ready to get back in the saddle, Chief. I sent you the papers.
Oh, I know. I'm looking at them. You hear this?
Fuck! What are you... Don't tear them up! Fuck!
Man, that's how my last few job applications went. Turns out 2 weeks ago, James caused a train crash and ended up in a new body, so he isn't medically cleared to go back to work. However, the chief throws him a bone by doing an off-the-books political job. To do this, we are given a liaison, Sarah Kai. Before Sarah shows up, James opens the car door, revealing that, in fact, the drive-in is a flying drive-in. Apparently, there will be a big Art Deco revival in the next 100 years. I'm down for it. Sarah has us go to a post office to get the equipment we need, and we get a taste of the main mechanics in the game. Dialogue choices. Now, the game constantly insists that the dialogue choices affects the game, and kinda. You can influence James's personality a little bit, like you can make him more or less of a dick, and certain choices will be referenced later in the game. Like if you tell Sarah you are watching movies, where you are, she brings up James being a movie buff later. But the overall events and plot are pretty much set in stone. The Stiff is a man called Edward Green, who did something to help with the creation of Icarite. I think. Doesn't really matter because he's a philanthropist in a cyberpunk story, so he's automatically evil. He somehow died, and we have to get his Icarite so he can appear at an event he was supposed to host in a couple of days. If it was only ever that easy. We enter Green's penthouse apartment and get a tutorial on the investigation mechanics. This is where the game fails. Hard. If you have ever played the Batman Arkham games, the investigation mechanics are nearly identical. You have a doohickey that lets you follow a line that lets you follow another line with another doohickey until the characters say the answer. It even has the reconstruction from Arkham Knight, where you press a button and you magically see what happened in real time. Unlike Batman, however, every time a new scene is added to the reconstruction, you have to do a shitty minigame where you hold the mouse buttons in a certain order. It creates a stop-and-go playstyle that gets really old, especially on repeat playthroughs. Look, I'm not saying the devs had to craft Mensa-level brain stranglers, but when investigation is the main mechanic of the game, I'd like to actually, investigate. And some of you might say, it's not about the investigation, it's about the story! Then why even bother with the mechanics? Exploring Green's penthouse, Sarah and James will comment on the bric-a-brac and tchotchkes around.
What the fuck is this?
A bike. Or rather, a wheel off a bike.
And people rode on it? How?
Like a motorcycle. But you had to push those things around and around with your feet to make it go.
Ouch. It's scary how little we know about the world before the Icarite.
Shouldn't it be the opposite? You would think with how much nostalgia permeates modern culture, it would even be worse in a society where people can theoretically live forever. Actors forever playing the same characters, franchises getting rebooted ad infinitum, constant reminders of the good old days. Not to mention how else immortality would affect the world. Given Green was around for the invention of Icarite, and it looked like he had 5 bodies before the current one, if we assume those bodies lasted 80 years, Icarite was invented at the earliest 1929. Did that change the Great Depression? What about World War II? Hitler was a member of the Nazi Party in 1929, meaning he could still be alive. What about Churchill? Hirohito? If someone is given the death sentence, do they destroy the Icarite, or do they just serve multiple life sentences as a brain in a jar?
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
We do get some fun character moments though, like telling Sarah what chocolate smells like, or if you choose a dialogue option about not liking the UV light, Sarah will tease you about it for the rest of the game. Back to the story, turns out Green's Icarite has been melted, rendering him permanently dead. James begins to investigate the scene despite Sarah's protests.
James, stop doing this.
Sarah, you remedial lobotomite. We are tasked to discreetly pull this guy's Icarite. It's melted. Why the fuck would we not at least see how that happened? She even calls the chief, who says to just rule it as a suicide, even though in the reconstruction we can see Green getting pushed off the banister to get hanged. Remember that scene, by the way, it's going to come back later. Eventually, Sarah comes around when the reconstruction shows that Green was stabbed in the shoulder.
Forehead like a ball-peen hammer.
Why can't we see the killer in the reconstruction?
He covered his tracks pretty damn skillfully.
Convenient! The all-knowing time travel technology can accurately show where the stab wound is, but it can't show who pushed Green. Must have been made by HP. They also find a carving on the tree of an Ouroboros with the date of Green's death. This will never be explained. James then finds a vial of poison, but he keeps that a secret before leaving. Me when I see the Jack Daniels next to the car keys. James returns to his apartment where we learn some things about him. He used to be a star baseball player before joining the force. He also has a dead wife and baby, just like all good detectives. We get a shower scene for the boys where James and his neighbor literally verbally joust.
Forearm on the neck, elbow to the face.
Impossible. I'm down. You got lucky.
We call up Sarah and set up an evidence board. It's a puzzle where you have to connect the evidence correctly, and it's mostly busy work. It's pretty obvious what you gotta connect to what, but even if you don't know, you can just brute force it since there are no consequences for getting it wrong.
These damn politicians. Everything snatched away from the citizens. I bet they're all celebrating.
James, that Zeppelin just fucking exploded. There's fire coming out of it. How the hell does that look or sound like reverie of any kind? We learned that Green was in cahoots with a man named Kovalev, and it just so happens he's the bartender on the blimp that just exploded. And would you look at that? It crash-landed right next to James's apartment. How fortuitous! James manages to sneak on board the downed airship.
It seems they didn't wait for the gravity to do the killing. Swell. I prefer to interrogate corpses. Their deaths tell me more than their lies would.
It also means the devs can save money on voice actors. Apparently the evil rich fuck convention was in town because you discovered documents just out in the open planning to lower the age for body subscriptions. The body subscription is a fee you have to pay to keep your body. The current age starts at 21 and the plan is to lower it to 18. The body subscription is a fantastically horrific idea for dystopia, but the game does not really explore the concept. Are people really going through bodies at such a fast rate? Why not clone new bodies? How big is the memory bank and how long are people stuck in there? Forever? But I digress. We continue rebuilding the crime scene.
James, can you get into the suitcase?
Okay. Lock works. Let's see.
What? You're telling me that the reconstructor actually rewinds fucking time? Not to mention it somehow bypasses locks both digital and physical. Are the people in the reconstruction alive? Are they real? Do they know they're being watched? Why couldn't we just rewind time and straight up ask Green who killed him? And before you say it, no, the items in the case are real. There's a safe in the bar that James opens up and takes out scotch that he actually drinks and a key card that he uses later in the game. Why would you introduce a mechanic like this? Completing the reconstruction, we learned that Kovalev was actually working with Green and that Kovalev decided to pull this move on his own patrons. James is about to leave, but he gets interference in his earpiece, and a sinister man with a sinister voice replaces Sarah.
Who's this?
The question is, what can I do for you?
Yeah, can I get a burger with cheese? Whoever this guy is, he claims that he is the puppet master pulling the strings of these events. He points us to one of the bigwigs who is behind the body subscription age lowering and says if we blow his brains out, we will buy normal people time. I decide against it since the flying machine is about to fall into a ravine anyway, so no need to waste the ammo. These are one of those choices that overall don't have any bearing on the game, but I don't necessarily mind since it gives an interesting dilemma to think about. Sarah manages to come back and James jumps on a car to get out of there. We get an honestly really good scene of James sitting on his car drunk calling Sarah. Not before getting thrown off the case though.
Hey, Chief. Did you hear they served scotch with lead at Icarus?
I didn't hear anything. Especially not from you. Because you weren't fucking there.
I got some evidence. Ties to Green. Rock solid.
Fuck. First you sent me that bullshit report, and now you got evidence. You listen to me right now. You weren't there. Understand? And we're not talking now either. In fact, I haven't spoken to you since the accident. Got it?
Chief.
Nope. That's it. I'm pulling you off this case. Steiner out.
It's a good thing this game came out in 2024. It would have been crucified by snarky TV tropes readers back in the day. There's a section here where you can select what kind of person James thinks the killer is. And it's a slight bit of foreshadowing towards the ending, which I have mixed feelings on, but let's put a pin in that for now.
This city has a disease. Something festering. Somewhere deep down. Underneath the routine of concrete and steel. Below the predatory grin of the neon lights, an infection has set in. It's like everybody started having the same nightmares. Night after night. I know the dream. The one that makes me wake up drenched in sweat. Heart about to crack open. Scream locked in my throat.
Oh yeah, that's the good shit. The gravelly narration, the music. This is the noir I crave. Put it in my fucking veins. Here's an example of something the game does for world building. Certain points has James looking at the city where you can hover over sections and James will talk about them, like here.
Old Zed. Man's a classic. True professional. He'll fix any machine you bring him. As long as you're not picky about where the parts come from.
This does a decent job of teaching the player more about the world, but it also inadvertently shines a spotlight at how small the scope of the game is. That's not a bad thing, but fuck man, I want to visit Old Zed or check out the Opera House. This version of New York seems really cool, but we don't get a chance to explore any of it. After the talk with Sarah, we get a vision of James walking towards a beach, where his wife is waiting for him before Icarite yanks him back down into the waves. Subtlety, thy name is nobody wants to die. James gets back home and he is not having a good time.
Where are the fucking drugs?
Don't you already know who the murderer is?
How did I...
Hey, doesn't the hero die at the end?
Yes. God, he's trying.
Alright guys, foreshadowing is important, but come on, this is a little ridiculous. James goes around his house looking for his pills, but he must be taking a whole bottle every time, because he has only one bottle left despite having a big supply earlier. Where did the rest go? After that, James has a VR therapy session. It's mostly exposition about James's life that we got when looking around his house. The important part of this scene is we get info on the train accident that James caused 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna be completely honest here, it's a waste of time. It's completely redundant, because later in the game, James goes to the site of the train crash, and it restates everything from this scene. The only thing that actually matters in this scene is near the end where we see James's wife commit suicide. Why the hell do we not get more on that? James's relationship with his wife is actually super important because his wife committing suicide is what led to James crashing the train. We could have used this time to explore his relationship with Rachel, to see from James's perspective what led up to Rachel committing suicide, even if it's not fully accurate. Like, James's trauma is literally the linchpin that causes the entire story to happen the way it does. So why in the glazed cream-filled fuck do we get barely any interaction between the two? Sarah and James realize that the card they picked up from Icarus can be used back in Green's apartment. Turns out there was a safe in the wall, and no, you can't find it at the start of the game. I tried.
Why such a large generator for such a small safe?
This isn't a generator.
This is a refrigerator.
What? No.
A projector?
No, it's a carburetor. Turns out the key opens a secret door to an elevator. And of course, the elevator breaks and falls, causing James to lose his earpiece. Putting it back on, it's the stranger again, and for this investigation, he takes the place of Sarah, and mostly acts like a snarky dick. We enter a meeting room full of corpses of various elites of the city. During the investigation, we learned that this is a sort of red room, where many of New York's major elites, both enemy and friends alike, come together for weird murder sex parties. There are a lot of bigwigs here. The editor-in-chief of the New York Times, movie moguls, a senator and her actor husband. And James mentions interacting with some of these guys in the past, and I can't help but feel like this reveal of the Cabal sex room would have hit harder if we interacted with some of these people like the reporters beforehand. Something we find out is that the body the senator's husband has is not the one he is supposed to currently have. And going even deeper, we found out why. They swapped bodies with an orphan who just recently turned 21. Now this is fucking horrifying, and actually pretty well done since Green's and others' contributions to orphanages has been brought up several times. James finds the security footage and tries to find the identity of the killer, and it turns out Green was the one who murdered all of the elites, and so the thick plottins. This is where Green got the cut on his shoulder we saw in the reconstruction, so that means Green was alone upstairs. The game somewhat pulls off that twist. Almost all of the things we see happen to Green in that reconstruction is something Green could do to himself. Except, when we see Green fall from the railing, that motherfucker looks like he was pushed. Scratch that, he was pushed, look at that. What, did Green jump backwards to make it look like he got pushed? Did he slip on a banana peel? Dude should be looking like Kratos at the end of the God of War 3. Dude should straight up be 5-star frog splashing off the balcony. The game is straight up lying to me with this image. Fucking bullshit. The stranger in the earpiece tells us he's gonna go after Sarah, so we run off to save her. Wait, how's the elevator working again? That shit was sparking off the tracks. Here we get another choice where we can either lock the door forever or keep it open so the people can be found inside. Unfortunately, I was taking notes and forgot about the timer, and James ended up locking the door forever. Because fuck 'em, that's why. James goes racing off to Sarah's house, not calling or using the earpiece to try and warn her for some reason, and conveniently, Sarah's house is the only building that is connected to a big fuck-off satellite, so it's not hard to find. For some reason, Sarah lives inside an indie horror game with all these fucking mannequins, and James literally drops in, and a quick gunfight ensues.
I'm going through whoever and whatever it takes to save Sarah!
What? James? Is that you?
Oh shit. Sarah?
Yeah, it turns out Sarah's fine. But why didn't she recognize James? She would know what his current body looks like. Speaking of bodies, we learned that Sarah is currently loaning her own body out to a famous psychologist named Jane Selma, on the down low so she can get money to get her girlfriend Taylor out of the memory bank. Sarah and James go over the evidence, and Sarah asks this question.
What do you think? Who's behind all this? Murderer or Green?
The more important the decision, the less certain, huh?
We're out of time for mistakes.
This is one of the only two choices that matter in the game. If you want the good ending, you have to choose that Green is behind it. You want the bad ending, you choose the other option. We choose Green, and then James decided to go to the train crash to try and remember what happened. Like I said earlier, we repeat a lot of what was said in the therapy session, but we get more context. James's wife drank poison to have a final death, and James fucking snapped. He found a dealer who supposedly sold Rachel the poison, and did not care about the collateral damage whatsoever. Doing this, the stranger mocks us, and we get visions of Rachel.
Did you know that in the last psycho test I talked about us? I understood that you would never accept my decisions. Life ends. Even memories fade away. Nothing else will happen. know. We were stupid. That would be wrong. We would be bad people. We really are. Because we're still alive.
She would never. It's my own fears feeding on her death.
I'm not a fan of this. I have no context to how true to life this version of Rachel is. Rachel has so little screen time, there's nothing to really analyze, so any interpretation of the scene is going to be based off of nothing.
Are you alive? What?
Killer uses your memories against you like a parasite. Squeezes into gaps left by the desyncs and modifies them. I don't know. He hacked synchro tests and finds out everything. He does it somehow.
Unfortunately, the answer is a lot lamer than that. The level ends with James getting dragged into his dead kid's room and waking up on the floor of the train. Sarah needs him to head to Central Park where a riot has broken out so he can find Jane Selma and make sure she is okay. This is the final level, and it's kinda like the microwave hallway in Metal Gear Solid 4. James just gets the absolute shit kicked out of him. First the car crash, then the police chief rocks up and shoots him, and then another car crashes into James. Jesus Christ. After all that, we make it to where Selma is, and that's where we learn the truth.
Can't see what you see, or hear what you're hearing, or feel what you're feeling. But I know even Green struggled with something similar. It's desynchropsychotic disorder.
Desynchro? What?
Probably our Icarite. Our mind has a limit.
It can only handle a certain number of traumas and reincarnations until it gives out.
I don't know if I can help you, to be honest, but I'll try. You just have to let me go, okay?
Yep, that's the twist. Why did Green do it? He just went crazy. Kovalev just went crazy. The stranger in the earpiece? Just James going crazy. That's so fucking lame, man. It's not even that it was badly foreshadowed. It's such an unsatisfying answer to what was built up to be a pretty big conspiracy. It makes things uninteresting. And it raises questions like, why would Green going crazy make him want to stop things from getting worse? Wouldn't he go more Emperor Nero and fall further into degeneracy? I mean, the Red Room was in his fucking house! Not to mention, what did Sarah hear when James was talking to the stranger? She never brings it up, and it's not like the earpiece was ever broken at any point. We get a bunch of clues about how this whole series of events must have been planned for such a long time, but why? Green had more money than God and basically ran the government. He is the one who made the body subscription to begin with. He could have stopped that whenever. He's that powerful. I'm not saying the mind-jacking idea is what they should have gone with, but at the very least, if the twist is gonna be that James is going crazy, don't have the conspiracy be real. Commit to it and have James actually going fucking insane. James gives Selma the earpiece so Sarah can get her out of there, and before James can succumb to his insanity, he drinks the poison and jumps off the building, where he rejoins Rachel in heaven. The bad ending is you decide to kill Selma, and you succumb to your wounds, getting trapped in the memory bank for who knows how long. And that was Nobody Wants to Die. Overall, disappointing. I really liked the world, the characters were fantastic, and really good dialogue. Well, except for this.
Waking Sarah up for a drunken call was as healthy as my usual cigarette dinner.
That one was just trying too hard. But the gameplay and the lackluster story really hurts the game. I do think it was a mistake to kill James Kara, at least in the first game. I think it would have been better if it was built up over, like, a sequel or a third entry. There just wasn't enough emotional build-up to get the effect the devs were going for with his death. And I would have loved to see him on other adventures. I do hope the devs revisit this world one day because there's a lot of potential here. Anyway, that's it for me. Peace.